It's worth remembering that the TBA exists to support British breeders, and that's what we've been doing over the last 6 months. The team's worked incredibly hard to make sure that Boardview can keep on operating and the protocols have been in place, and I think we can all be proud of the efforts they've achieved. Of course, none of us can tell what's going to happen with COVID-19. It's going to have an effect almost certainly on the sales and our future decisions for breeding, but the TBA will be there to try and support you as best we can as we move forward. The economic impact studies that we carried out in 2014 and 2018 showed the dire situation for British breeders, particularly by 2018 how over 60% were losing money. We had to come up with a long-term strategy for British racing, and fortunately the Great British Bonus Scheme was launched just ahead of racing starting again this year. We believe it's a great step forward for breeders, for British breeders in particular. We hope that you're all engaging with it and registering your foals and yearlings. We are going to work tirelessly on your behalf to make sure that other initiatives come forward to support British racing and British breeders in particular.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 103rd Annual General Meeting of the Thoroughbred Breeders Association, which is a first for the TBA as the first AGM to be held virtually. The quorum required for the meeting is 25, and I confirm the meeting is quorate. My name is Claire Shepherd, and in my role as Chief Executive Officer of the Thoroughbred Breeders Association, I'll be taking you through the formal business of the meeting, the agenda for which was sent in advance to all members with a formal notice of the meeting. There are a number of items requiring audience participation during the meeting. We'll be using an online poll for agenda items 1, 3, 4, 5 and 7. Details of how the Zoom poll function works has been circulated in advance of the meeting to all members who have registered. The poll will be open for around 20 seconds each time members are asked to vote. I will be announcing the results rather than displaying the poll results on the screen, as the poll only records on the day votes, and proxy votes have been received in advance and are also counted in determining the final outcome. 193 proxy forms have been received, with 191 of those allocated to the chairman. All vote results will be published after the AGM in the members area of the TBA website. As members will be aware from the election notification sent out earlier in the year, we have 2 vacancies on the board due to the conclusion of the terms of office for Nicholas Jones and Philip Newton. And under item 3 of the agenda, we'll be announcing the election results and the names of the newly elected trustees. Robert Whaley-Cohen and Edmund Marnie have also stated their intention to stand down from their co-opted trustee positions after this AGM. I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank Nicholas, Robert and Edmund for all their support for me in my role and for all the tireless work they have undertaken on behalf of the TBA, whilst they've been trustees. The TBA Board has asked Philip Newton to continue in one of the vacant TBA co-opted trustee positions, including in his role as Deputy Chair, and I look forward to continuing to work with Philip. In addition to the formal agenda items today, which the members are asked to approve at this meeting, the Chairman will be delivering his annual address, and the trustees will be updating on the work of the TBA and its committees. We've asked members to submit questions in advance of the meeting, and these will be answered by trustees as the last item of this meeting. And so I'll now move on to the formal business. There are no apologies from the TBA Board, And a list of those members who have provided their apologies in advance is available on request from the TBA office. So we move on to item 1, which is to approve the minutes of the last annual general meeting. So the first item requiring your approval by the use of the polling tool at the bottom of the Zoom screen is the minutes of last year's annual general meeting, which was held on the 17th of July 2019. Copies of the minutes have been available on the TBA website in the members area and upon request from the TBA head office. In order to approve the minutes, please can you use the polling tool on your screen. If you approve of the minutes, please select yes from the polling options. If you do not approve, please select no. We'll give it 5 more seconds and then we'll close the poll. Thank you. The minutes of the last annual general meeting are therefore approved, and we move on to item 2, which is to consider any matters arising from those minutes. There were no matters arising to report on, and therefore we'll move to item 3, which is to announce and confirm the names of the members who have been properly nominated in compliance with the election process and are therefore appointed as elected directors. The election process was run by Price Bailey, who received, counted and verified the votes cast and have provided a report of the results to the TBA trustees. I am pleased to announce that following this meeting, Kate Sigsworth and Colin Bryce will be joining the TBA Board as newly elected trustees for a 4-year term. Our thanks go to all our nominees for your interest in joining the board to support the British breeding industry, and we very much look forward to welcoming Kate and Colin to their first TBA board meeting in December. Move on to item 4, which is to receive, discuss and adopt the report of the board and accounts for the year ended 31st of December 2019. Copies of the report have been available on the TBA website in the members area and upon request from the TBA head office. And I'm pleased to report that our auditors Price Bailey reported another clean audit this year. In 2019, the board's policy was to fully distribute the incoming resources in support of the TBA's strategic objectives. The association's total incoming resources amounted to 1.45 million, up from 1.36 million in 2018, and after total expenditure of 1.55 million, this resulted in a net loss of resources of 97,423. Sales levy income is a vital source of our income, and I record the board's thanks to Tattersalls and to Goffs UK for their support in collecting this essential funding, and to all the breeders who support the work of the TBA through the sales levy. Our other main sources of income are membership fees, grants from the Horse Race Betting Levy Board and Racing Foundation, and the foal levy collected by Weatherby's General Stud Book. We remain very grateful for the support we receive from all these sources which fund our vital activities. I would like to formally move that the report of the board and statement of accounts for the year ended 31st of December 2019 be received. This has been proposed by Nicholas Jones and seconded by Philip Newton. In order to approve the report, please can you use the polling tool on your screen. If you approve, please select yes from the polling options. If you do not approve, please select no. Give it 5 more seconds and then we'll close the vote. I confirm this is carried, and thank you very much. We now move on to item 5, which is to agree the subscription rates for 2021. The subscription rates need to be ratified at each AGM. The board have recently reviewed the TBA's approach to membership and are recommending a change to its structure as part of our commitment to increase access to the industry through education and training. This change in structure includes introducing an associate tier of TBA membership. The associate tier will include digital services and discounted access to future online training courses and learning materials. This tier will hopefully enable stud staff, bloodstock enthusiasts, industry professionals and students to join the TBA community and increase their breeding industry knowledge. It will incorporate the current members of the Thoroughbred Club, and the subscription price agreed by the TBA board is £60, just £5 per month. Full TBA membership will continue to offer full voting and member rights, including all the current discounts and benefits of TBA membership. The challenges being faced by British breeders at this time means it has never been more important that you have a strong voice representing your interests within industry and with government. The board have agreed to increase the price of full membership to £150 for recurring payments from the 1st of January 2021 to ensure we can continue to fund our vital representative work and cover the costs of the membership benefits that we offer, including management of the Great British Bonus Scheme. I'd encourage members to use the recurring payments option on the TBA website as the most cost-effective way of the TBA to manage membership and to save you money. In order to ratify these changes, please can you use the polling tool on your screen. If you approve of the changes to price and structure, please select yes from the polling options. If you do not approve, please select no. Five more seconds and then the voting will close. Thank you. I confirm these changes are approved and we'll move on to item 6, which is to re-elect the auditors. Following the 2019 AGM, the TBA Audit Committee undertook a tender process for the TBA's auditors. Price Bailey was successful in the process and were appointed by the board and have now carried out their first audit. We now move to the re-election of the auditors. We propose that Price Bailey are reappointed as the association auditors at a fee to be agreed with the board. This is proposed by Peter Mendham and seconded by Brian Mayo. In order to approve the re-election of the auditors, please can you use the polling tool on your screen. If you approve, please select yes. If you do not approve, please select no. Just 5 more seconds and the voting will close. Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. So move on to item 7, special resolution. The directors propose that a special resolution is passed that the draft Articles of Association attached to this resolution be adopted as the Articles of Association of the company in substitution for and to the exclusion of the company's existing articles. The draft articles extend the maximum term of office of the chairman from 6 to 8 years in total, and I'll now hand over to Philip Newton in his role as Deputy Chairman to outline why the TBA trustees unanimously agreed to this proposed change to the articles.
Good afternoon. The purpose of this resolution is to provide the authority to extend the period of office for Julian Richmond-Watson, the Chairman of the TBA. Let me explain why your board proposes this. The change was recommended by the Board of Trustees to provide the flexibility to the Chairman's term of office, enabling directors to continue to serve on your board when specific knowledge and skills benefit to the association charitable objectives are involved. It's a turbulent time, and the board believes it's in the best interests of the TBA and the industry to provide a degree of flexibility around terms of office to ensure that the association can retain the key skills needed where and when implementing this change will enable the TBA to provide stability in its governance and leadership when operating in unusual climates. You will not need any reminding that the racing industry and the breeding industry are facing challenging times, and the impact of COVID has yet to be fully felt. The next 2 years may prove to be critical to the future of the industry. It's essential that the TBA presents the views and needs of the breeding industry during that time to both government and within the racing industry itself. You may be amazed to learn that within racing, there are 35 committees or boards upon which the TBA has representation. They are all important, but two of the key influences are the Horse Race Betting Levy Board and the Horsemen's Group. With regard to our current chairman, it's essential that the TBA has robust representation at this time, and Julian's in-depth and strategic knowledge of the industry is vital for government affairs and industry steering groups to ensure the best possible outcome for breeders. We have an effective and achieving executive, so ably led by Claire and supported by a well-led board, whose members gladly roll up their sleeves and do much more than just appear at board meetings. We're making strong progress, and the TBA is a voice that's listened to. But we do not just talk the talk, but walk the walk as well, as the COVID protocols, membership support, and the creation, promotion and delivery of the Great British Bonus Scheme have evidence in the last 12 months. We have much more to do, and your board is determined to lead the breeding industry through these troubled times, and Julian is an important part of that. The trustees are unanimous that Julian should continue as chairman, and it was my job to persuade him to stay on, which he has generously agreed to do. I hope I've persuaded you similarly, and that you'll give your support to this resolution. Thank you.
So could I please ask for your approval of the special resolution by completion of the poll on the screen? If you approve of the change to the articles, please select yes from the options. If you do not approve, please select no. Five more seconds for votes, please. Thank you very much. The resolution is carried. So the next item on the agenda is the Chairman's address from Julian Richmond-Watson.
Good afternoon, and what an extraordinary year. And I'm now delivering this report to you online rather than in person at the AGM. The TBA and our team have had to adapt, like everyone, to the extraordinary circumstances that we found in March with the lockdown. And I'm proud of how hard they've all worked to look after breeders and breeders' interests. Our website was updated daily, and we all became quickly used to the new ways of communicating with you, our members. I'm going to be brief this afternoon in summing up the achievements of the year and then looking forward to the many challenges that face us next year and beyond. Lockdown started with a very real threat to the breeding industry, with the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons advising their members to only carry out essential work on studs. And so we had to work urgently with the government and DEFRA and the Chief Medical Officer, as well as our own equine vets, to come up with a protocol to allow the covering season to continue. And I'm delighted that through our excellent contact with DEFRA, this was achieved. A real example of what the TBA can do for the industry through its contacts regularly with DEFRA and other ministries. Our Great British Bonus Scheme, approved and supported by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, was due to launch in March. But with no racing taking place, the launch was postponed until June. The scheme has been welcomed universally and has provided a much-needed boost to British breeders. Seeing small owners and breeders winning such meaningful prizes, and now the jump winners starting to flow, is one of the uplifting highlights in a very difficult racing year. Putting the scheme together has required an enormous amount of work and perseverance. And as well as thanking the GBE management team, I'd also like to thank the horsemen and the levy board for their support. The Horsemen's Group and the TBA have been fully engaged and played an integral part in ensuring racing came back behind closed doors, and that the importance of prize money has been kept central stage in all discussions. Racing is a complex sport, and we at the TBA consider it vital that breeders' voices are heard wherever breeders have an interest. And so we represent you everywhere, from race planning to horse and people welfare, in government and internationally, and through veterinary forums and education. It's vital that breeders' voices are heard. Other people will not represent us as we can for you. And so, looking ahead, well, we must hope we get crowds back on the racecourse in the new year. The levy reserves that are currently supporting prize money and racecourses cannot continue at the same level for much longer. Brexit needs resolving, and as I record this for you, Brexit has not been resolved. And we continue to model all the various scenarios, some of which could have serious consequences for the breeding season. Once, and if the situation becomes clearer, we will send you out advice, and we'll try and make sure you all get the best advice possible. But make no mistake, this is not going to be easy. In the meantime, we're working with Weatherby's, organising the registration of stud premises and refining the horse movement app. Webinars and presentations on all of this work will start next month, so try and keep you up to date. Whatever happens, moving horses between countries is going to require more regulation, more process than we have been used to in the past. It is going to be more time-consuming and more irritating and difficult. British breeders need support. GBB is a great start. But if racecourses wish to run the size of programme they run now, and some have ambitions to run a larger programme, then they will need us to maintain and produce more foals on the ground. And that will only happen if breeders feel confident about the future. Confidence is everything about inbreeding. Extraordinarily, the worldwide foal crop of thoroughbreds has dropped by 29%, 29% to 2006. And we can expect further falls in the coming years, unless there is a real willingness to support breeders, both in Great Britain and internationally. It is noticeable that France is the only major racing nation in the world to increase its foal crop over this period. And they intend to increase their breeders' premiums again in 2021. Our prize money model has to be radically overhauled, with racecourse media rights money now well ahead of the levy board's contribution to prize money. We have to re-examine our prize money structure and support from top to bottom. The TBA will be behind that sort of restructure. The major and larger owners and breeders are looking at opportunities abroad, not surprisingly. And we must keep the prize money, as well as the prestige of our major races, attractive to these and new investors in our sport. Every sport needs a premium level to drive interest, and as breeders, we need to see horses properly tested. So we should always strive to make the best race attractive and competitive internationally. It's vital that we test horses on the track, and that was one of the reasons why I pressed so hard to get racing back up and running. So the TBA's challenges for 2021 are: one, maintaining and advancing our contacts with government and ministries and those in the industry who could support and influence our activities. We must keep up our contacts to make sure breeders' voices are heard. 2, Brexit, whatever it turns out to be, and there will also be more on this as soon as we know. 3, GBB, moving forward and building a consensus, a greater consensus of support for British breeders. We would like to see, obviously, GBB expanded. Prize money at every level, but ensuring that the top end is competitive with other racing nations. And not least, keeping in touch with you through our website, and as we adapt to a more online world, introducing an exciting new initiative for e-learning, which we will be launching in the spring, something that will reach all of you wherever you are. And most importantly, looking after you as breeders, and ensuring that you receive the service and support you need. So I'd like to just finish by thanking the TBA's Board of Trustees who have adapted and worked so well on the media of Zoom, and to thank Nicholas Jones for his wise counsel as he stands down after 4 years as a trustee. But particularly, I would like to thank Claire Shepherd and the Stansted House team who have worked tirelessly, whether from home or in the office, and have served us all so well. I hope and look forward to seeing you all in person next year, and wish you all the best as we head off into another breeding season. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And there now follows 5 videos from TBA trustees updating on some of the key questions addressed by selected TBA committees in the last 12 months.
Do you think the TBA has adapted services to its members throughout the COVID-19 pandemic? What are you particularly pleased with the TBA delivering for its members?
The pandemic has obviously affected the ways we've all had to change our working practices, and we've all got to had to learn more about how everything is computerized. The first thing I think that the TBA can be proud of, the pandemic came in the middle of the breeding season, and therefore protocols had to be agreed with other third parties, the government and the vets. And we, the TBA, had to ensure that our members and other breeders knew what the protocols were, that they were able to use them efficiently. And I think that did happen, which enabled the whole breeding season to continue without the disastrous effects of bringing it to a halt mid-season. And I think as a result of that, going forward, there will be a new normal in terms of how we do book mares in and how we use computers, and we'll be having less paperwork in the future. So I think that was the first thing, and since then we've continued to adapt to the current situation, and I expect many of the things we are doing today will become permanent.
What membership benefits and services do you feel are of best value to members?
Well, others will obviously talk about the Great British Bonus Scheme. Members of the TBA benefit from discounts when they enter their fillies into that scheme. In addition, because we haven't been able to have our regional meetings, we have introduced, as you know, a series of webinars on a variety of topics. And I'm sure going forward, we'll continue with those and try to make sure we have topics and speakers who are of interest to all our members.
What TBA initiatives and projects are you excited to see develop?
The most exciting development going forward is the digital hub, where we will be able to communicate with all our members on a whole variety of issues. This is work in progress at the moment, but we hope to have that up and running in the near future, and it will be our best method of communicating with all our members. I think we've seen over this year membership increase, not least due to the new bonus scheme. I believe the value of the membership is outstanding given everything that we can offer our membership.
What have been the main achievements of the TBA National Hunt Committee over the last year?
Well, the TBA has certainly risen to some very difficult challenges during the course of the last year, of which the biggest by miles is all the restrictions introduced because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I have to say, the TBA's chairman, Julian Richmond Watson, and the chief executive, Claire Shepherd, did an absolutely wonderful job, mostly down to their very good relationships with DEFRA, but in making sure there actually was a breeding season. There was a moment when there wasn't going to be a breeding season, as breeding horses was regarded as non-essential. Luckily, the opinion was changed. It was allowed to go ahead, which meant the vets were able to visit their pregnant mares, and the mares were able to visit stallions. And that was a slightly unusual achievement, but it was a very real one in 2020. The other huge achievement, which is transformational for British breeders, was introduction of the Great British Bonus. This provides up to £20,000 to the winning connections of horses bred in the UK under the GB suffix, if they meet all the conditions. And that, I think, is absolutely transformational and should encourage people both to go to British-based stallions and to stand more mares in the UK, for buyers to seek them out at the sales, and for breeders to race them themselves. And the last thing on this achievement is we kept the Elite Mares breeding program going, and this is a program under which the Levy Board provides some funding, partial funding, for UK-based mares, or to go to UK-based stallions, which encourages the better mares to stay in the United Kingdom. And indeed, with all the issues coming shortly to do with Brexit, this may become even more relevant than it is today.
What work has the TBA done to improve the National Hunt Mares Race Programme, and how do you think the National Hunt Mares Race Programme developed over the past few years?
Well, the programme's changed out of all recognition. Mares have for many years been receiving a £7 allowance when running against geldings. But the number of mares races has improved hugely. So there are now about 10% of all the races are for mares only. This is absolutely a huge increase. And the number of opportunities for mares to gain black type in the UK has increased hugely. In fact, in the last 15 years, it's gone up about sevenfold, and there are now 36 races with black type for mares only in the UK. The programme is still not absolutely finished. There's still lots of work to do, so there's a natural progression for fillies. What's really been exciting is the introduction of 3 races over the last 12 years at Cheltenham for fillies, starting in 2008 with the David Nicholson, which was a race for experienced hurdlers, followed 4 years in 2016 by the race for novice hurdlers. And this year, for the first time, by which I mean the season 2020-2021, in March 2021, there'll be a chase for fillies only, which is something we couldn't have really sensibly asked to be introduced earlier, as the quality of the mares weren't there, but now they are. And one's starting to see some of the outcome of that, in that in March 2020, there were no less than 7 fillies winning at the Cheltenham Festival, which is 25% of all the races that are held there, the 28 races, including the Champion Hurdle. So we're starting to see that going really well.
Why is the sales levy important to TBA funding?
Well, it forms such a large part of our annual income. Last year, it was well over 50%. And without the sales levy, we would just find it very difficult to function and do all the things that we want to do. So at the moment, it's absolutely imperative that we get a good return from the sales levy. without it, we'd really struggle.
What other ways can people and the industry support the TBA?
Well, if we talk financially, the sales levy is a voluntary levy, which causes us problems, obviously, because we can't budget for how much we get. We're so dependent upon whether or not people decide to pay the levy, or the level of the markets. And obviously we were concerned this year as to how the sales figures would look, because that has a direct impact upon our income. So that's not hugely satisfactory in terms to run an organisation year on year. We are a charity, so we could look to generate income from donations, legacies, etc. But that's a very crowded marketplace. So I think realistically, the two options we have available to us would be the sales levy or the full levy. But the sales levy is a mechanism that seems to work. So I think the way that people can support us financially is to contribute to the sales levy, to make sure that they do pay. At the moment, we get a considerable income, and we're very grateful for that. But the figures tell us that still is a large proportion, probably is possibly up to a half, between a third and a half of UK breeders are not actually paying the sales levy. And that, if we could build on that and encourage more of those people to pay, that would make a huge difference to our finances.
What changes have you seen in the last few years with regards to TBA funding levels?
I think there have been a number of changes. The sales levy, if I go back to the 10 years ago when I joined the board, sales levy has gone up, but that's, as I've just indicated, that's a reflection of not necessarily in terms of more people paying it, but it's more that the sales figures have gone up and therefore our income increases. At the same time, our membership income has gone down. We've kept membership subscription levels quite flat over that period. And we've lost members because the older breeders are going out of the business, and it's more difficult for new entrants to come in. So the membership figures have gone down, and therefore our subscription income has gone down. So the proportion of our income that comes from members is actually reduced markedly in that period. But on the positive side, we've managed to obtain a much higher level of support from people like the Levy Board, the Racing Foundation, because of the plans that we've put to them and the propositions we've put forward for funding, and they've been increasingly successful over that 10-year period. So that's a very positive sign.
The results of the early pregnancy loss research, which the TBA funded, have been released. What did the research reveal, and is this important to the industry, and if so, why?
This is a marvellous piece of work done by Mandy de Mestre and her colleagues at London Vet School, and she has managed to look at early pregnancy losses that we have collected, the dead ones, and sent up to her, and she has managed to analyse these from a genetic point of view. And her early results have shown that quite a large number of these failed early pregnancies are due to genetic problems at the chromosome level. And as the costs of these tests and the technology improves, this is going to lead to much more studies in the future onto other losses, maybe later abortion losses. And the whole of the equine veterinary industry is very excited about this work. It's pioneering work. And I do hope that the TBA will continue to support her, because nowhere else in the world is doing this work at this level. And it's proved quite groundbreaking. It's terrific stuff.
Equine health and welfare is a key priority for the TBA. Can you tell us about a few of the projects that have been delivered?
Welfare has become much more of a priority, and rightly so, although the breeding industry can hold its head up very high on these matters. Things that help with our welfare going forward are the well-established code of practice, which has now become completely international, and projects that are currently being delivered, which are going to help with this, are the e-passport and recognition of premises numbers, digital movement of horses, and change of ownership tightening up, because we are aware of gaps in the chain of production where horses disappear from the system. And one of the key priorities for the Welfare Board was tightening up on where these losses occur and looking into those gaps. And all these initiatives are really going to help with that. And at the same time, help us if should there be another disease outbreak in recognizing movement of horses and where these horses are. And it's really going to help with control measures should it become necessary with some infectious disease. So there's a lot happening here in conjunction with Weatherby's, and I think they're terrific initiatives coming forward and should really help everybody and every member of the TBA.
How do you feel the E2SE programme has supported the breeding industry's recruitment and retention needs?
Well, thanks to the efforts of the National Stud, the E2SE programme is hugely important. It is geared at career changes for people. So we're not talking about the youngest people coming into the industry. We're talking about people who are coming in having decided to have a career change. And it is a tremendous opportunity. And in the last 2 years, for example, there are about 30 people who have passed through this course via the National Stud into the industry, which has got to be a good thing.
Why do you think the TBA's education and training initiatives are so important to the industry?
I think in this time, having opportunities for people to come into the breeding industry is absolutely crucial. We need to source people from the wider world to come into the industry. Long gone are the days when you come in because you knew someone who was already in it. We need to be a pathway for recruitment for the racing and breeding industry. And I think the TBA, with a lot of help from the National Stud and others, do an excellent job in providing a pathway into the industry for people from the outside world.
In 2020, the TBA has delivered a number of webinars. How do you feel they have been received, and how do you see the format developing?
The TBA have done really well to introduce these webinars. I think 2020 has been a dreadful year for so many people, and the TBA has led in many ways as to how we work given the restrictions that we've all endured. The webinars have been very well received. Inevitably, people have taken time to get used to them, but they've been interesting and the numbers listening to them have grown. I think racing and breeding is always going to be a people game. I think people are always going to want to see and talk to each other. So whilst I think they will develop, I think that meeting face to face is not going to disappear just because we have had 1 year without being able to meet up how we want to. But the webinars are a great plan and another method of getting information, useful information out there to breeders.
What TBA initiatives and projects are you excited to see develop?
Well, I'm fortunate to be involved in a small way with the development of the hub. And I think the TBA hub, which is geared towards improving the educational opportunities for people, is incredibly exciting. It's a massive expense for the TBA, but I think breeders throughout Britain and further afield very quickly will pick up on the learning opportunities that the hub is going to offer. And I believe that it will change the face and the reputation of the TBA for the better for years to come. And I'm really excited about the development of the hub.
Following that, we'll now move on to the final item on the agenda, which is to receive questions. I'll now read out the questions received in advance, and we'll be inviting in turn a board member to respond to each one. So the first question received was on the Great British Bonus Scheme. Why does the Great British Bonus Scheme only include fillies? What support is there for colts and geldings? Similarly, Why are British breeders' fillies that are born abroad excluded from the scheme? And I'm going to ask Brian Mayo to respond to that.
The answer to the first part of the question is that when we initially put forward proposals for what became the Great British Bonus to the Levy Board, we included prizes for colts and geldings as well as those for fillies and mares. The idea was that colts and geldings and fillies and mares winning open races, any sex races, would win £10,000 prizes. Fillies and mares winning mares only races, fillies only races, would win 20,000 prizes, so that they had an extra incentive. So that was the idea. The problem with that is that it would cost in excess of £6 million a year of Levy Board money to fund a scheme like that. And in the middle of 2019, it became apparent that the Levy Board simply could not afford that sum of money. So within the TBA and within the breeding strategy group that the TBA organised, we had a dilemma. Either we could reduce all the prizes for all those horses by 50%, or we could take out colts and geldings and have the same high prizes for fillies and mares. The overwhelming consensus of the people we talked to is that we should do the latter. They believe very strongly that high headline prices were a very important way to change behaviour, and that talking about 5,000 prizes for colts and geldings and 10 for fillies maximum were not very exciting propositions that was going to influence the behaviour of people to buy British. Whereas the major problem for most breeders is the very much lower demand for fillies than they have for colts. So that when a typical breeder is looking at a filly foal, they're looking at potentially a loss of many thousands of pounds as against a similar colt. So the view was that we had to make the scheme concentrate on fillies and mares only to make it affordable in the short term. Now, as the chairman said, longer term, we would hope to improve the Great British Bonus scheme, and we'd hope to go back to the Levy Board with some more ideas for how we can make it better. And one of those may be to look at prizes for colts and geldings. But right now, the Levy Board is having to fund racing very heavily in the absence of any crowds. So this isn't the time to be making that particular statement. In the future, if the levy is reformed on an improved basis, which is, I believe, the view of just about everyone in racing, with the possible exception of the bookmakers, if the levy is improved, then we may have a better opportunity to go forward with an improved version of the Great British Bonus that might at that time include colts and geldings. The second question, why? Well, the second question, I think, was why is it limited to British bred mares only rather than mares, fillies only rather than mares born abroad? There is a difference between British breeding, which the Levy Board has a statutory commitment to support, and in some cases, British breeders. A British breeder, a person that lives in this country but chooses to keep their mares abroad, have them foal abroad, covered by stallions abroad, is not doing anything to help British breeding. If a person sends their mares abroad to foal and then has them covered by a foreign stallion, but then keeps them back in England or Scotland or Wales for the summer, that's doing a little bit for the rural economy, but not very much. So those two things are not particularly helping the Levy Board objective of supporting British breeding. Now, there may be a better argument for saying that a filly sire by a British-based sire born abroad should get a prize, but again, that would cost more money. And right now, that is simply not affordable. In business, there's often a very simple saying that simplest is best. And in this particular case, I think it's true. The way that horses are recognised as the product of a particular country's breeding scheme is the location in which the foal is born and the suffix that is given to the foal after its name to identify the country it was born in. And a horse that carries the GB suffix, when it wins a race, is advertising British breeding to the rest of the world. And a horse that doesn't carry the GB suffix is not advertising British breeding. So that is why when we think about the Great British Bonus, it has an acronym, and the acronym is GBB, and I'd suggest the clue's in the name.
Thank you, Brian. I'd like to ask the chairman the second question, which is, what is the TBA doing in preparation for the end of the tripartite agreement?
As you will see, sorry, apologies. Sorry. As you will see, I recorded my speech a few days ago, just in case the internet didn't work. But I was wondering if we were going to have an agreement on Brexit in between then and now. Unfortunately, we seem to have made remarkably little progress. As you know, we're leading on this, and we are ready to send out to you a set of infographics to explain exactly what actions you should take and when you should take them. We have held back on sending these in case there is some sort of agreement, and we then can discard at least half of them and move on to the next half. But I think I should report really, and we have sent out the message, don't try to move horses in the first 2 weeks of January. The customs posts in Ireland and in Britain are not ready, so we don't know what would happen in any case. There will be a lighter touch for horses coming into Britain, but for horses going into Ireland, I think there's going to be all sorts of difficult problems to overcome. We will send out the information as soon as we can. We will probably have to start sending it out next week, regardless of whether there has been an agreement or not over Brexit. But we are up and ready to go. But please make no mistake, this is going to make life much more difficult for sending horses into Europe.
Okay, and another question for the chairman. Prize money is a big issue for the industry. How does the TBA think these issues could be resolved?
Well, this comes back to the bookmakers again, doesn't it? They are the one source of income that have never really contributed enough to British racing. And so the reform of the levy has to be a priority. There is a committee under Joe Sommer, who is one of the BHA board members, working on this at the moment, but we should be producing some sort of recommendation to the government very shortly on where we see levy reform going. But we have to reform the levy to bring in more money. At the moment, it is simply not delivering enough to keep British racing at the top of the tree.
Thank you. The next question is directed at Philip Newton. Is the Great British Bonus Scheme making a difference at the sales? Are trainers and agents aware of the scheme and looking for the GBB horses?
It's hard to think that the Great British Bonus Scheme is not yet 6 months old. It'll be 6 months old on December the 1st. And that we know that it's gaining traction in all parts of the industry because it's universally referred to now as GBB. And before I go any further, it's been said before, but the TBA and the breeding industry should record their huge thanks to the Horse Race Betting Levy Board in these difficult times for getting behind this initiative and providing us with the funding to make it happen. At the launch of GBB on the 1st of June, we had 3 objectives. The first was to achieve a level of registrations for the 2019 and 2020 crops to guarantee the viability of the scheme. Second was to introduce and develop awareness of the Great British Bonus throughout the entire industry. And the third was to influence the attraction of GBB registered fillies and mares and sales prices consequently. Well, to date, and with registrations now closed, we've achieved for the 2019 crop 1,612, that's 1,612 registrations, and the 2020 crop 1,628. And that is about 75% of the total target market, and that it's exactly where we expect it to be. So that's a big step down the road. Awareness of the scheme is now evident in all parts of the industry. Trainers are targeting GBB races specifically. Owners are encouraging them to do so. Agents are targeting GBB fillies at the sales ring. And as I've said earlier, breeders are supporting with high levels of registration. We're on the road. As far as the sales are concerned, both Tattersalls and Goffs have given us significant support in terms of the promotion of the scheme, and both of them would acknowledge the importance of it in increasing interest in British bred GBB qualified fillies. So far, I would say that we're in the process of analysing all of the sales data, but there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that in almost every sale that a GBB qualified filly has beaten the median price at the sale. Up until before the Tattersall sale, that over £2 million had been received in sales receipts for GBB fillies, and that there had been an average of 26,000, and that's over jumps and on the flat as well. And another bit of anecdotal evidence that at the Goffs August sale, a GBB registered filly made 40% more than a eligible but non-registered GBB qualified filly. I think that's compelling evidence. I think for a scheme that is just 6 months old, that we've paid out, and we will have paid out this week, I think, by the end of this week, £1.25 million in bonus prizes already, £1 million on the flat, and we're just jumping to it with National Hunts, and that this week we'll have paid out £250,000 there. It's a fantastic scheme. Give it your full support and get behind it. It really will make a difference. And as Brian said, and as the chairman said, that if we can ensure and show that this is managed well, delivered well, then we'll get further support, and that we can enhance it and extend it. It's a great scheme, and I'm very proud to be part of it.
Thank you, Philip. I'm now going to come to James Crowhurst to answer the question, what is the latest update with regards to the Animal Health Trust? What is happening to some of the essential infectious disease surveillance services?
Well, the loss of the Animal Health Trust was a great tragedy after all the hard work and advice and support that they had given to the industry over the years. The trustees worked very hard to save it, and a good plan was formed but was sunk by COVID. The furlough scheme did provide some cushion for the employees, and I hope that they've all found jobs within the industry or similar industries since. Immediately that this happened, BHA set up a committee to look forward into a replacement, and immediately retained Richard Newton and his little team on disease surveillance, and set up some subcommittees under the chairmanship of Stephen Atkin to see what the industry's really needed going forward. And there is an opportunity here now to make something that is a replacement for the Animal Health Trust to meet the challenges that we're going to have in the 21st century, and modernize this, and hopefully get some of the non-thoroughbred industries involved financially as well going forward, because the horse industries are all susceptible to diseases, and traditionally it's only been the thoroughbred industries that have contributed. So we are now getting to the close of both of the subcommittees that have been asked to look into this, and they've been very wide-ranging, looking at all the systems in other countries, and we're just starting to put together a report to go to Stephen Atkin and his committee to make recommendations of what this new service should do and should include, and maybe how we could encourage others to join in with funding and that sort of thing. So I think the industry has responded very well to make something that's really fit for purpose going forward, and help all the industries deal with outbreaks of disease, sponsor research, and coordinate things at times of trouble. So there will be some announcements in the new year when these recommendations have been put to Stephen Atkin and then the Levy Board Committee. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to come up with something really fit for purpose.
Thank you, James. And finally, I've got two questions aimed at Peter Mendham on EU exit. The first one is, what is the most up-to-date guidance on import and export duties on geldings, mares and foals to and from the EU from the 1st of January 2021, and if there is no deal? Peter.
Well, the first thing to say that in terms of duties alone, it's the position at the moment, pre-completion of the negotiations, is that there will be a duty on geldings only, 10% duty on geldings coming into the UK from outside, and 11.5% duty on geldings going from the UK to the EU. So that's the position on geldings. That may well change, obviously, if there is a trade deal, because I suspect if there is a trade deal, that duty will be removed both ways. But we have to wait and see on that. What will happen, irrespective of any trade deal, is that VAT will be payable, again, both on horses coming into the UK and horses going from the UK to another country. And everybody will also have to complete customs documents. And that's a customs document for the horse leaving the UK and going into another one for the customs administration in the receiving country. And similarly, when the horse comes back to the UK, there will be another document. So there's a lot of customs documentation will be required, and that will be in place irrespective of the outcome of the trade deal. I think it's important to remember that. The trade deal may remove the duty, but it won't remove the need to complete documentation. In terms of the up-to-date position, there's a lot of information on the BHA website. There's a particular section of the BHA website, which Julian alluded to earlier, which feeds in the input and the output from the Brexit Group steering group, which, as Julian said, is the TBA is heavily represented on, and that is kept up to date. So matters of detail will be on there, not just on animal health issues, but the various VAT import duties and all sorts of transport issues. So I'd encourage everybody to log into that website. It's updated on a regular basis. And as Julian also has said, that there will be infographics issued to everybody during the course, hopefully, of the next week. There are things that everybody who's contemplating moving horses in the first few months of next year ought to do now. The first one is to make sure that they have the ORI number, which is an economic operator number. Without that number, it will be very, very difficult to move horses, and it almost certainly will lead to delays. It's not a hugely complex thing to do. You can do it online and you can get the number within 5 minutes. But it is vitally important that you do that and you're ready to provide that number and place it on the documents. The second point is that the documentation is quite complex. And I would again encourage everyone to speak to the person who is organising the shipping of the horses to see if they will help you with the customs documentation. It isn't something that I think you ought to try yourself, certainly not at this stage, because there'll be a lot of uncertainty for the next few weeks and months probably. And what you don't want is incorrect documentation or poorly produced documentation, because that will lead to delays. There may well be delays anyway because of the lack of preparation on both sides of the borders. But it's essential that you get information prepared correctly and professionally, and that should do everything you can to make sure that the movement will be trouble-free and delay-free.
And a follow-up question on that, is a gelding that has been returned from Ireland liable for 10% duty, even if he was bred by the present owner and was already his property when sent there in the first place? If not, how does the owner ensure that no duty is charged?
providing that the gelding is owned by the same person when it comes back as when it went out, and it comes back within 3 years of the first export, there will be no duty or VAT to pay. You don't have to provide any proof for the import customs documentation, but I suggest that you do have evidence to put a date on the outward movement of the horse. And even if you're beyond the 3 years, HMRC will normally, and I think almost certainly in these particular situations, they would allow an extension of that period, but that would have to be specifically applied for. But if it's within 3 years, it's being imported by the person that exported it initially, there should be no duty or VAT to pay.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes all the questions that we've received. The TBA will be holding webinars during December to outline in greater detail the changes coming next year for breeders, with both the UK leaving the EU and with the introduction of new digital technologies, including the e-passport. These webinars will obviously provide plenty of opportunity to ask detailed questions in these vital areas, and further details of both will be published in the coming days. I'd just like to thank all the trustees for their support for the team, and for the TBA team for their fantastic work in supporting members during these very challenging times over the past few months. And specifically, I'd like to thank Olivia May for setting up and running this virtual AGM, which in itself has been quite a challenge. And I'd now like to hand over to Julian Richmond-Watson to close the meeting.
Thank you, Claire, and I would echo my same thoughts to Olivia. It's great to be able to do something like this in-house. I know we aren't quite as slick as we might be done professionally, but it hasn't cost us anything other than a lot of Olivia's time. So thank you very much for that. And let's hope that we all learn from it, but that we don't have to do it too often again. So I'd like to close the 103rd TBA Annual General Meeting. Thank you all for attending. I hope that we can all see you again, in person next year. Thank you.